Rain poured down like needles over the small roadside diner, that kind of place sitting on a forgotten stretch of highway, with flickering neon lights and a sign that read, Marty's Diner, open 24 hours. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee, wet leather, and tired dreams. A few truckers sat hunched over their meals, the low hum of country music barely masking the storm outside. In the far corner, near the window fogged with condensation, sat a woman alone. Her black leather jacket glistened with rain. She wasn't looking at her phone or staring into space, she was simply aware. Her eyes, sharp and calm, scanned the room every few seconds with subtle precision. Even in her stillness, there was control. Her name was Claire Dawson. To anyone watching, she was just another weary traveler. But under the surface, beneath the quiet exterior, lived someone who'd seen things most people couldn't imagine. A former Navy SEAL, one of the first women to ever complete the training, she'd served in covert operations across the globe. She'd been the shadow behind enemy lines, the one who went in silently and left no trace. And then, one day, she simply vanished from the world of uniforms and weapons. No one knew why. The waitress, a kind, older woman named June, approached with a soft smile. "Coffee, hun?" she asked. Claire nodded. Black. June poured her a cup, noticing the calloused hands, the small scar along her wrist, the quiet confidence that seemed too heavy for a casual traveler. "You from around here?" June asked, making conversation. "Just passing through," Claire replied, voice low but steady. "Heading west." "Not much out west except more rain," June chuckled, setting down a slice of apple pie. "On the house. You look like you could use something sweet tonight." Claire smiled faintly, the kind of smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thank you." The diner door swung open again with a bang. The sound of boots stomping and raucous laughter filled the small space. 3 men stumbled in, soaked and loud, their energy instantly changing the room's calm. They looked like the kind of men who thrived on attention, leather jackets, red eyes from too much whiskey, and smirks that dripped with trouble. They took one look around and spotted her, the lone woman in the corner. "Hey, boys," one of them drawled, "look what the rain brought in." The other two laughed. June's face tightened. She recognized them, Tyler Briggs and his buddies, locals with too much time and too little respect. The kind who picked fights just to feel big. Claire didn't react. She kept her gaze on her coffee, pretending not to hear. But silence, to men like that, was a challenge. They swaggered over, the tallest one, Tyler, planting his elbow on her table. "You alone, sweetheart?" he asked, leaning closer. "'Cause it's dangerous for a pretty thing like you to sit all by yourself." Claire didn't flinch. She just looked up at him, calm as stone. "I'm fine." Tyler grinned, flashing yellowed teeth. "Oh, I bet you are. You military or something? You sit like you've got a stick up your back." His friends snickered. Claire's fingers wrapped around her cup, but her tone stayed level. "You've had too much to drink. Go sit down." That made him laugh harder. "Oh, bossy, I like that." June started to step forward, but Claire gave her a subtle shake of the head. It was a gesture that said, "Don't get involved." Tyler leaned even closer, his breath hot with beer. "Come on, don't be shy. What's your name, sweetheart?" "Leave," Claire said, her voice barely above a whisper, but it carried weight. The laughter stopped for half a second. There was something in her tone, quiet, cold, unafraid, that brushed against the part of their brains that still understood danger. But pride is louder than instinct. Tyler scoffed and, with a mock bow, said, "Or what?" Then, before anyone could move, he spat. A long, deliberate spit, right in her face. The diner went silent. June gasped. One of the truckers stood halfway up, unsure whether to interfere. Claire didn't move. She simply took a napkin from the dispenser, wiped her face with calm precision, and stood up. Slowly. Her eyes were ice, not angry, just decided. "Big mistake," she said softly. Tyler grinned, taking a step back. "Oh yeah, what are you gonna do about?" He didn't finish. In one motion, Claire's hand gripped his wrist, twisted, and slammed it down on the table so fast the coffee cup shattered. Tyler let out a sharp cry, his knees buckling. Before his friends could react, she spun and drove an elbow into the chest of the second man, sending him crashing into a booth. The third lunged, but Claire pivoted, sweeping his legs with brutal precision. Within seconds, all three were on the floor, groaning. No one in the diner even saw the full motion. It was as if the storm outside had briefly entered the room, swift, controlled chaos, and then silence. Claire stepped over Tyler, who clutched his wrist and stared up at her with disbelief. "You ever spit at a woman again," she said quietly, "make sure she's not a Navy SEAL." The color drained from his face. June's mouth hung open. One of the truckers murmured, "Holy hell." Claire tossed a few bills on the table, adjusted her jacket, and walked toward the door. As she pushed it open, thunder rolled across the sky. "Ma'am," June called out, her voice still trembling. "You want me to call the cops?" Claire turned slightly, her eyes softening just a little. "No need. They've learned their lesson." And with that, she stepped back into the rain, disappearing into the night as quietly as she had arrived. But the story of what happened in Marty's diner that night wouldn't stay quiet for long. By morning, everyone in the county would know about the mysterious woman who took down 3 men without breaking a sweat, the one who didn't raise her voice, didn't show anger, and yet made grown men tremble. And Tyler Briggs, for the first time in his life, found himself speechless when asked what happened. Because how could he explain it? He didn't just get beat up. He'd been taught respect, by someone whose calm was more terrifying than violence itself. He'd spit in her face. And that was the biggest mistake of his life. The morning after the diner incident, the storm had passed, leaving behind streets slick with rain and the kind of silence that follows chaos. But the quiet didn't last long. Word spread faster than the sunrise. From truck stops to local bars, everyone was talking about the woman who took down 3 men in less than 10 seconds. Some called her a ghost, others said she was special forces. Nobody knew her name, only that she moved like thunder and disappeared like smoke. Tyler Briggs sat on the edge of his bed, his wrist bandaged and his pride shattered. His 2 friends, Cody and Mason, looked equally miserable. Cody's ribs were bruised, Mason's jaw was purple. Tyler glared at his reflection in the cracked mirror. "A Navy SEAL, that's what she said." "Yeah," Mason muttered, wincing as he touched his chin. "And she wasn't bluffing, man. You saw what she did." Tyler's expression twisted. "I don't care what she is. She embarrassed us. In front of half the damn town." He grabbed his jacket. "We're gonna find her." Cody groaned. "You serious? You wanna go round 2 with a SEAL? You're out of your mind." Tyler slammed his fist against the wall. "She made me look weak. You think people are ever gonna forget that?" No one answered. They all knew the answer. They'd be the punchline of every bar story for months. By afternoon, they were in Tyler's truck, driving toward the edge of town. Mason had asked around and heard she'd been seen at a small motel near the highway. "She probably skipped town already," Cody said. "Then we'll make sure she doesn't come back," Tyler muttered. Meanwhile, Claire sat in that same motel, her gear laid neatly on the bed. She had her duffel bag open. Inside were a few changes of clothes, a passport, and a small black case with military-grade precision tools. The SEAL in her had never really left. Every night, she still cleaned her knife the same way she used to clean her rifle. But last night had stirred something old, something she'd buried. When she left the Navy, she promised herself no more violence. No more adrenaline, no more missions. She'd done enough, lost enough. But standing in that diner, looking into the mocking faces of those men, she'd felt that familiar hum in her chest, the focus, the sharp edge of instinct. It scared her, how natural it still felt. A knock came on her door. Her eyes flicked up instantly. 3 sharp knocks, impatient. Male voices whispering outside. Without a sound, she moved to the window. A familiar truck. 3 silhouettes. So they hadn't learned. She sighed softly. Some lessons take longer. She slipped on her jacket and opened the door just a crack. Tyler stood there, smirking like he'd already won. "Well, look who it is," he said. "Didn't expect to find you so easy." "You should have stopped looking," Claire replied evenly. He shoved the door wider and stepped inside with his friends. "You think you can humiliate me and walk away? You don't know who you're dealing with." Claire studied him quietly. "Actually, I do. I've seen your type in every country I've ever been to. Loud, insecure, always needing to prove you're tougher than you are." Cody shifted nervously. "Tyler, maybe we should." "Shut up," Tyler snapped. He turned back to Claire, sneering. "You think you scare me, soldier girl?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. "No, but you're about to be scared of yourself." That was the last thing he heard before she moved. In one motion, she sidestepped his lunge, grabbed his arm, and used his own weight to flip him onto the floor. The thud echoed off the motel walls. Cody rushed forward, throwing a wild punch, but Claire caught his wrist, twisted it behind his back, and shoved him against the wall. Mason froze mid-step, eyes wide, remembering last night all too well. "You really want to do this again?" she asked him. Mason hesitated, then raised his hands and backed away. "No, ma'am, no, I really don't." Claire released Cody and stepped back. Tyler groaned on the floor, clutching his shoulder. She knelt beside him, calm and controlled. "Listen carefully," she said. "You think what happened last night was about humiliation. It wasn't. It was a warning." He looked up at her, his bravado gone, replaced with something raw, fear. "I've been in places where one wrong move cost people their lives," she continued. "Men like you don't scare me. But men like you destroy yourselves trying to prove you're not weak. Stop before you do something you can't come back from." For a long moment, the only sound was the rain starting again outside. Then she stood, grabbed her bag, and walked past them. But before she reached the door, she turned back one last time. "You wanna fix what's broken in you," she said softly. "Start with respect." And with that, she left. By the time the police arrived, called by a worried motel clerk, Claire was long gone. All they found were 3 bruised men, sitting in stunned silence. When questioned, Tyler said nothing. For the first time, his arrogance had vanished completely. He wasn't just afraid of her, he was afraid of what she'd seen in him. That night, he sat alone in his truck, staring at the rain-slick streets. He kept replaying her words in his head. Start with respect. He didn't know why it hit so deep, but it did. Maybe because no one had ever looked at him like that before, not with anger, not with pity, but with truth. The next morning, he showed up at Marty's diner again. June froze when she saw him. "If you're here to cause trouble," she started, but he raised a hand. "I'm not," he said quietly. "I just wanted to apologize." She hesitated, then nodded. He left a small envelope on the counter. Inside was a note, greater than, to the woman from last night, "If you ever pass through again, coffee's on me. And thank you. You taught me something I should have learned years ago." June smiled softly, setting the note under the counter. "Guess miracles still happen," she murmured. Miles down the road, Claire drove with the window cracked, the wind tugging at her hair. She didn't smile often, but this time, she did, just a little. Not because she'd won, but because she'd seen something rare, a spark of change in someone who didn't know they were capable of it. She turned up the radio, the hum of country music mixing with the sound of tires on wet pavement. Her next stop was unknown, maybe a new town, a new name, a new start. But wherever she went, the quiet strength of a Navy SEAL followed. Not in violence, not in pride, but in the lesson she'd just left behind, that true power wasn't about dominance or fear. It was about control, discipline, and the courage to walk away when you could destroy everything. And that's why no one ever saw her again. But years later, in a small diner on that same highway, people still whispered about the woman who taught a town what respect really meant, the one they called the Ghost SEAL.